All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the Million Dollar Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Paige Arnof Fenn. Paige, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I am really excited to talk to you today.
I am too. You and I, we've already been getting to know each other. We had a conversation before we started, making plans to have do this interview together. And I want to start by giving a shout out to the folks over at the Quoted platform. I found out about them. Well, Paige, how long have you been aware of them and the work that they do?
Not that long. I'm going to say, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months, but
Okay,
I
so
found
not
it
okay.
super easy to use.
I'll tell you, I have a friend of mine who he too hosts a podcast, and he was telling me about them. And he's like, Kevin, I have got some amazing guests from the Quoted platform. And so I was checking it out, and my assistant was like, well, let's just put up a listing really quick. And so we put up a listing, and within 2 days, I had 41 responses to that. And there was a few of them. There were like seven or eight of them that weren't a right fit and stuff, but the rest they were, and it was like really great people. And I was like, man, my friend was right. These are some awesome people. And you came through that. In fact, you told me that you saw the listing after because after those 2 days, I'm like, I'm closing this thing out and just let's work through what we got here. you know? And you saw it after I had closed it out and just ended up messaging me or emailing me and stuff. And I'm so glad that you did, Paige, because I'll tell you that email and the story you shared with me around relationships that grabbed my attention. I'm like, oh, I got to talk with Paige and get to know her a little bit, and so we got to have that conversation. And yeah, I'm really excited to do the interview with you today. And I want to start off by just turn it over to you so we can set a little bit of context and we can let the listeners know a little bit about who you are and who you serve, what you do, what inspires you most about the work you're doing and the impact you're making in the world. And also give us some of the backstory too, because I've already heard that. And I know you got an amazing backstory. so,
Well, I grew up in the deep South, and, like a lot of kids in the 60s and 70s, your manners are really important.
yeah.
And, you're taught to kind of learn all the rules of etiquette. And as a little kid, I always knew I wanted to get into business. My dad and both my grandfathers ran business. That was the path I wanted to take too.
Okay.
I started my career on Wall Street in the 1980s. It was a crazy time. I had seen Michael Douglas in the first Wall Street movie and I
Wow.
got hooked. But after a couple weeks, I realized pretty quickly that was not going to be my path in life. But I had made a 2 year commitment and I honored my commitment. But when it was done, I went back to school, got an MBA, and did a rebrand kind of pivot in my career from finance into marketing.
Okay.
And my marketing careers had 3 chapters. I started doing big business, corporate, kind of Fortune 500 consumer products marketing at Procter and Gamble and Coca-Cola. And then I got kind of enamored with the dot-com era when Internet 1.0 started taking off in the mid to late 90s. I
Mhm.
left behind my big corporate cushy job and I joined a startup no one had ever heard of as the head of marketing and fastened my seatbelt and went on a wild ride. It was a lot of fun. We went public in 1999. We were sold to Yahoo. And then I did 2 more startups as the head of marketing and those had good exits too. And when 9/11 hit and the world kind of came to a screeching halt,
Yeah.
I hung out a shingle and started doing marketing independently with my own firm. And I've been doing it that way ever since for the past, I don't know, more than 2 decades now.
Okay.
So that's how I got here.
Okay. So who is your ideal kind of client, Paige?
So our tagline is because marketing matters. And we love working with organizations of any size. We're industry agnostic. We work with everything from, pre-revenue, early stage startups
Okay.
to Fortune 500 to nonprofit and everything in between. but the majority of our clients I would describe as mid-market, emerging market firms, kind of 2 million to 200 million.
Okay.
Um, they really need excellent marketing, but they can't afford the overhead of a fully staffed, marketing department and a big time agency. They're never going to get the attention they need, with kind of the bigger fish.
Uh-huh.
So we love working with those kind of betwixt and between that need access to great talent on an as needed outsourced basis.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sure you can come up with a lot of examples of this. I just want to challenge you to come up with like one or two. But what's an example of a result that you have helped get for one of your clients that is just you're incredibly proud of?
So, one of the great things about starting your own business is the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel very fortunate that we've had a lot of great client partners and done a lot of really important work that has impacted their business. The one I think I'm the most proud of, I grew up in New Orleans and we started working with an industrial products company in New Orleans before Katrina hit. And they needed a complete rebrand. They wanted a new logo, they wanted a new tagline, a new website, like all new marketing materials.
Okay.
And we had been working with them for a few months when the hurricane hit and shut down the city for
I
months.
remember that. I
Yeah.
remember that.
And
That happened the day after I got married. August. So I got married August 20th of '05. So that happened August 21st of '05 was when that happened.
yeah, and so my company was only a couple years old at that point, and we had really embedded ourselves in this organization and talked to a lot of people internally, a lot of their clients, to really understand the guts of this brand and how we were going to give it a refresh.
Yeah.
And the brand had so many great stories buried within the organization. It was a family owned business, multi generational, and they had really, their clients, industrial products can be very boring. Um, but they had some just fantastic stories about how their products were, their clients were some of the most iconic uh, structures in the world,
Okay.
um, bridges and monuments. And it was really, they were working with these iconic uh, clients. And so we started talking to the sales team and all the manufacturing people, the people in the plants, and a lot of even though it was a multi-generational family-owned business, a lot of the employees were multi-generational working for this company as well.
Wow.
So they just had, it was like a local business done good.
Yeah.
And no one had ever told these stories before. Well, fast forward a few months, Katrina hits, the power gets shut off, the city's evacuated, um, the floodwaters. I mean, it was just devastating for New Orleans.
Yeah.
And again, we had been working with them for months. And so we had talked to everybody on their cell phones and gotten to know them personally through all the work in the trenches we were doing together. So as soon as everyone evacuated, people went all over to go live with family. They moved to neighboring states, and the cell towers were underwater. Their website went down. I mean, everything was just devastating. And where we were in the timeline of the project, they had their biggest trade show of the year coming up in a couple of months, and we were helping them. That was going to be almost like a coming out party with the
Okay.
new brand and all the new things we had worked on together. And so everybody in the company, they couldn't find each other, but they could find us. And so we started being like the glue that was holding the team together. Everyone was checking in with us. Have you heard from this person? Have you heard from that person? Where did they go? What are they doing? And we were able to, get their webs. Our web team was doing their website anyway. We were able to, get everything up and running, get everybody's contact information, reconnect everyone from the business, continue doing our work, getting in touch with the trade show. It was just, kind of an all hands on deck
Yep. Yep.
situation. And again, in the early 2000s, there was a TV show. Now it's been around for decades, but Survivor was
Oh
really
yeah.
in the early seasons of the show. And we decided for the trade show, we were going to have a Survivor theme
Okay.
because these people had survived Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
And we got in touch with the organizers of the show. We told them this company is coming. Don't worry, they're going to be there. We've got all these great stories to tell, and you're just going to be very excited to see the new and improved business. And um, we had access to all the other attendees and vendors, and so we put together a kind of a drip marketing campaign where we were emailing and doing email marketing, um, kind of building momentum and getting some of these stories out about the guy in the plant who had barricaded himself in and lived out of the vending machine, for a few weeks
Wow.
as he was, making sure the company was okay. And it
Wow.
was just all these amazing, heroic stories of survival and, resilience and just amazing. So fast forward, we're at the trade show, and this is, like I said, it's a small regional business. They have big clients, but they are not one of the anchor vendors at the conference. You have
Okay.
huge name, publicly traded companies that have huge booths, sending, tons of people. But we had been in communication with everybody, the attendees and the other people that were setting up, you know, uh, little booths at the trade show. Well, when the trade show doors opened, there was like a line going straight to our booth.
Wow.
Everybody wanted to meet the people they had been hearing about and reading about. We had kind of humanized the brand. It was a very um, personal story. Again, back to those relationships. And people felt so proud to have been there. And all these organizations, they were doing fundraisers, and some of them had charities that they had talked to their local communities about. People came with checks, people came with these amazing, I mean, it just really was heartwarming.
Yeah.
People were so happy to see them and meet them in person and gave them hugs, and they were the ultimate survivors. It was their most successful trade show ever.
Wow.
And you know, after then fast forward, the city reopened, the company reopened, everyone went back, and it helped them not only from a kind of culture and bonding experience of the team, but it was almost like a recruiting tool. People wanted to be part of it. They were
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to kind of raise the bar and fill new jobs. And they really, I mean, it was really something good coming out of something bad. They
Yeah.
made the best of a crisis. And you know what they say, you never want to waste a crisis.
Right.
They didn't waste 1 minute. I mean, they really didn't miss a beat, but it could have gone a different direction.
Yeah.
And we were so proud to be part of the team, to help them kind of get their bearings, help them get back on track. And, to this day, they are still using a lot of the material, their website, their logo, their tagline. It's all still there, 2 decades later.
Yeah.
So because it's a kind of a local story near and dear to my heart, that probably meant more to me than anything.
Wow. What a fascinating story that is, Paige. That is, and it, I've long known this because I get to be this guy who is just the connector and conduit of trust for some pretty amazing entrepreneurs. And that's why I always ask my guests on the show, share your backstory, and because it's through sharing stories that we just really connect with people and we make just real meaningful relationships start. And what you shared is just such a beautiful example of that. And, relationships are the foundation of every business. Relationships with our team, relationships with our prospects, relationships with our clients, with our vendors. I mean, relationships are our most valuable asset. Everything else stems from that. And what a perfect example.
And that really, I mean, especially in this day and age with artificial intelligence and all the robotic copy that's out
Yeah.
there in the world, you know, if you don't own your story, your backstory, the origin story, all those human elements, the connections that really humanize your business and humanize your brand, if you don't leverage that, you're just going to blend in to the generic robotic copy that's out there in every category. It doesn't matter. Um, Throwing out facts and figures and jargon and hashtags is not going to get you where you need to go. You've got to kind of connect on a human level with those people, get those stories out there if you want to stand out and get remembered today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, so now that we've got some context set here, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, Paige, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
So I've always been somebody who kind of collects people in my life more than things.
Mhm.
And I love networking. As I said, I grew up in the South. New Orleans is a real social city. And, people love sitting on the porch talking, meeting at bars talking. So, I love networking and going to events and meeting good people. And I belong to a lot of groups that are women business owners or alumni groups or industry groups. Well, I met this woman. I was introduced to her at a professional women's group of women business owners.
Okay.
And, you know, I was pretty active in the group. And I live in the Boston, Massachusetts area. And every year they announce the top 100 women owned businesses. And I'd say 2/3 of those on the list are part of this group. So these are women that are really, have significant businesses. Well, this woman, again, it's kind of an industrial product business, not sexy, not glamorous.
Mhm.
She and I met at one of these events, one of their monthly networking,
Okay.
and she said she needed marketing help. And I said, great. We exchanged business cards. We set up a meeting. Her factory is like 20 or 30 minutes outside the city. We had a fantastic discussion. I toured the operation, and it was clear to me that we would really be able to help her find the right words and pictures to tell her story.
Okay.
And so I followed up. I wrote a proposal. I identified the team, the kind of the scope of the work that we wanted to do, who's going to be on the team. And I sent her the proposal and, followed up after the meeting. I'm very good with the follow up and the follow through. Again, good manners growing up in the South. And I left her a voicemail and I left her an email. And I said, once you've had a chance to review, would love to set up some time. We can do it over the phone or in person, and answer any questions. Well, a week goes by, there's no response. So, I just plant another seed. Anyway, now we're talking about a month later, and I just assume she must have talked to a lot of people, and I guess I really didn't make the cut. I there's a fine line between being pleasantly persistent and stalking somebody. But it just so happened this women's group that we were both part of, they were doing a holiday party. and
Okay.
she was going to be the keynote speaker at the party. It was in the invitation. And I said, well, might be embarrassing to run into her there, but it's the holidays. I need to network. It's, fun time of year to see people. So I show up at the event. I see her across the room. I kind of wave. I wasn't sure if she saw me. Then it was time for the official speaking part. So, I'm in the crowd. There are probably 300 women from the organization there for the holiday event. She gets up at the podium. She gives a very good speech about the importance of, women-owned businesses and how we really have to put our money where our mouth is. We need to support each other. Business is tough, and it's all, she's also big on relationships, and she loved this group, and she was very well known in this group as being very tough, very shrewd, very smart. A lot of people were kind of scared of her almost because she, it kind of had this um, tough shell
Okay.
exterior.
Okay.
So she's in the middle of her speech about the importance of supporting other women business owners. And to my shock, she announces as part of her speech that that's why she's hired my firm. She names my firm, Mavens and Moguls, and we are going to be handling all of her marketing, PR, and communications for the next year. She's got a lot on her plate. She needs the best that, she can find. I have this wonderful business. She and I have spent time together. We really hit it off. And, and that's why, you know, she's putting her money where her mouth is, and she's telling everyone in the audience to do the same in the new year. Well, she finishes her speech, and I literally felt like a rock star at a conference. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
at a concert. Here I am. People are coming from all corners of the ballroom, and they're like, "Oh my God, Paige, that's incredible!
Yeah.
Like, you must be so happy. When did you win the business? You didn't tell me this." I was like, "Okay, I just found out when you did." I said, I don't know if the fact that she saw me here prompted her to remember that she never followed up with me. She never responded to our proposal. I didn't even know if she had read it, honestly.
Yeah.
And it was so like, if it was such a great feeling, but it was like whiplash. I mean, I thought we had lost the business, and it turns out, she gave me the endorsement of a lifetime. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't have taken out a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times and gotten a better uh, response
Yeah.
than her announcing it in front of the top women business owners in the state of
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And after that event, we started with her in the new year. But I'm telling you, the first couple weeks after that holiday party,
You were busy, weren't you?
people came out of the woodwork. They said, if you're good enough for her, you're good enough for me, because
Yeah.
that woman does not suffer fools. And she's kicked a lot of tires and looked under a lot of hoods. And if she says you're the best, you are absolutely the best. And
Yeah.
I thought, just amazing, and I did write the thank you note. I told her I'd get a proposal by the end of the week. I delivered on my promises, but sometimes, and you and I have talked about this before, sometimes people get overwhelmed, they get busy, they
Yep.
get distracted. People have a lot going on in their lives, and you just don't know what they're up against. But I did try to be pleasantly persistent. I did try and not stalk her. I knew that she was going to be at this event, so it was an extra incentive for me to show up. I obviously talked to her in person right after she spoke, and she apologized profusely. She had stuff going on personally, stuff going on professionally. She loved the proposal. She felt, sorry that she hadn't followed up and thanked me. And, but she said, I just figured this was the perfect opportunity to tell people, like, this is the way I want people, I'm gonna kind of model behavior, and I want people to pay attention.
Yeah.
And I mean, we got so much business from that, and the referrals, and even people that didn't need marketing, maybe they sat on the boards of other organizations, or maybe 6 months down the road they needed marketing, they all remembered that event. It was like a real breakthrough kind of tipping point for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't have been more grateful.
Yeah. Wow. What an awesome story. And I can only, I mean, for anybody that right now is sitting here listen, they've been listening in on this and now they're like, wow, Kevin, I really love Paige. I love how she shows up. I love what she stands for. And and maybe now they're also thinking, dang, maybe Paige might be able to help us too. And so for anybody that might be thinking that, any websites, any resources we can share with them?
Absolutely. You can go to my website, mavensandmoguls.com.
Okay.
I've got a lot of information. I've got pages and pages of content. It's all free. I've got videos, tons of articles that I've contributed to, books I've contributed to. So it really is kind of a marketing. So a friend of mine calls it the marketing masterclass. There's
Okay.
just a ton of information and it's all free. I'm on LinkedIn. That's my kind of platform of choice.
Okay.
You can find a lot of information about me there, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody. I love connecting with people, and if I can't help you, I may know someone who can. But if I believe we can help you, I always think, if it's something that, if you can sell me, I can sell anybody.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again, it's all comes down to those relationships and connections, and you want to share chemistry and core values. But I feel very fortunate to have built a business over the last few decades with, relationships that I've made over the course of my entire career. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all roads have converged to help me build this platform.
Yeah. That's so awesome. You know, I'll tell you my goal for this podcast, is been really simple and it hasn't changed since we launched this. And it's kind of twofold. I want to give you, the guest, the opportunity to share your story and honor a person or persons who have just been really valuable for you in your life and in your business. And on the other side of the coin, for our listeners who are also entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs, I just want to use these stories to inspire them to place an intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their own lives. And Paige, with your help, we definitely delivered on that today. And so
Well, thank
I'm
you. I love that
oh
you've been so deliberate and intentional about the messages that really matter, because I think this is advice that small businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs can all genuinely benefit from. So it's a
yeah,
great service you're offering.
yeah. Well, it was such an honor having you on this show, and thank you again for taking the time to have this conversation today to just share from your heart. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Well, I would just encourage all the listeners, if we learned anything during the pandemic, it's that you don't exist unless you kind of put yourself out there, and you
Yeah,
need to have an
yeah,
online presence that accurately reflects what you do and how you can help people. So, check yourself out online, do a communications audit, see what is out there, Google yourself, check yourself out, be like a mystery shopper and see how you clean up. If you got digital dirt out there, you need to get that cleaned up. There are definitely ways to do it. And, if you have a product or service that your audience needs, that you can help them solve a problem, make sure you've got the right words and pictures to tell a story so that when they need your help that they think of you first.
yeah, yeah. Well, Paige, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other entrepreneurs. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you, Kevin. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. You're so welcome.